Weak? You.
I know. You're a f***ing disappointment.
Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is a breakdown of The Boys Season 3 finale with all the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed. The episode is titled The Instant White Hot Wild, named after issue 38 of The Boys, which told the origin of Kimiko. In the comics, she escaped from Vought's lab when she was a baby, and there's actually a very visually similar scene in this episode when she tears through the guards in the lab. The episode opens with Homelander finally finding Ryan with a little help from Victoria Newman. Now, it's appropriate that this scene begins with Ryan being frustrated and throwing the ball as far as he can. A father and son playing catch together is one of the staples of Americana. Now here, Ryan has no one to play catch with, at least not anyone as powerful as him until his dad shows up. This is showing us that Ryan is lonely and he really wants someone like him to be in his life. This also ties in well with the season's themes of fatherhood and family that I'll talk about a little later on. Also, the scene of Ryan becoming frustrated and throwing a ball is taken straight out of Superman the movie. Ryan is also feeling extremely guilty for hurting his mom, especially after Butcher pushed him away.
Well, maybe I don't want to look at you after what you've done to my Becca. Did you ever think about that?
Now, the guilt is weighing on him, and Homelander offers him a way out from under that guilt. First, he does this by expressing empathy.
You know it wasn't your fault, right?
But by the end of the episode, he shows Ryan that if you're strong enough, you don't have to worry about guilt. You get to make the rules. That's why these two scenes with Ryan bookend the episode. And all of this is on Butcher, by the way. He thought he was protecting Ryan by pushing him away, which worked with Huey.
You really are a spitting image of my little brother.
What?
But Ryan was too gentle of a soul to understand Butcher's fake heel turn. Then we go to massive protests, people who support Starlight versus Homelander supporters. Now, The Boys has become a reflection of our own deeply divided politics, where being right is more important than actually hearing the point of view of others. Notice we have one protest sign that's a riff on the Rosie the Riveter poster, but now with Starlight's face. I also like this one that reads God, Guns, and Homelander. It's also convenient that the protesters are separated into two different colors, just as America is being divided into red and blue states. Just as America is divided, so are the boys. MM is racked with guilt over giving Todd a well-deserved punch in the kisser. I could do this all day. So, MM has been trying to keep his violent past and Soldier Boy obsession from his daughter, thinking that he has to appear to be a different man around her. Instead of showing her who he is, he only shows her who he wants to be. And this theme is presented throughout the episode. Should I talk about it now? Yeah, go for it. Okay. Butcher kept Ryan from seeing his ugly side until he suddenly weaponized it to keep the kid away from him. Butcher is also realizing that he let himself become exactly like his father, even abusing Huey like his dad abused his brother Lenny. He's caught in a cycle of violence that's also mixed up with booze and Compound V. Huey talks about his dad not fighting back when his mom left, and just sitting with Huey every night. So for years, Huey thought that this made his dad weak, and that he should have been more of a fighter, more of a man. This is also why Huey was so keen to take Compound V24, so he could fight. But he realizes that you don't have to raise your hands to fight for something, and that his dad was actually one of the bravest men he ever knew because he was there for his son. Soldier Boy tells us about his father and how he can never be good enough for his old man.
Said it was a disappointment. Not good enough to carry his name.
And mostly the reasons that he wanted a kid.
I always wanted him, because I thought I could do it better than my father did.
Now, Homelander wants to be a father, wants to have a family, because, like Butcher and Soldier Boy, he wants to raise his kid better than he was raised. Later, when Soldier Boy sees that Homelander is a
weak, sniveling pussy,
Soldier Boy is actually seeing himself and his own need to appease his father. He hates seeing this reflection of his saddest feelings.
You.
I know.
Soldier Boy didn't want to have a son so he could be kind to him. He wanted to raise a son to be a badass, to be the man that Soldier Boy is pretending to be, but knows that he isn't. Back to MM, he ends the episode by telling Janine about their family trauma so she can share his grief. Whereas before, he was more like Soldier Boy, trying to mold her into someone that he wanted her to be. Someone who was not like him at all, someone who didn't experience any trauma. Frenchie quotes Herodotus to MM.
The most bitter is this, to know so much.
To control so little. I've read a fucking book, all right?
Now, this quote essentially means that human beings are self-aware just enough to know that we have no control over the universe. Put another way, we have emotions, but rarely understand why we're having these emotions. And not processing your emotions in a healthy way leads to conditions like PTSD, which Soldier Boy and MM both suffer from. And this scene ends with Frenchie showing off his nerve agent in a bottle of Wish, a beauty product we've seen an ad for in the past.
You're not crime fighting ready until you're camera ready.
Back at Vought Tower, CNN host Don Lemon is name dropped just as Black Noir and his cartoon friends arrive in the building. And then Maeve is gassed up and transported out of the tower, drawing a parallel between herself and Soldier Boy. They are both supes with a single-minded mission. They're out for revenge, and both of them are running away from authorities who want to exploit them. The CIA wants to harness Soldier Boy's super-killing radiation, and Vought wants to harvest Maeve's eggs. Oh, and speaking of Maeve, in the gas station we can see a brave Maeve snack stand here. Butcher flat out tells Huey,
You really are a spitting image of my little brother.
Before taking him out of the fight to protect him. Huey also calls Annie to pick him up from the Vought gas station, and that is when Huey realizes what it really takes to be a strong man. He thought he needed to be like Butcher or a Soup, but then he realized that his dad was the real hero. He also mentions that they watched an 80s action show.
Every night we'd have pizza rolls, watch Remington Steele.
And this isn't just a throwaway line or a random show. Remington Steele was a crime show about a woman who opened a detective agency, but no one would hire a female detective, so she hired an ordinary guy, Pierce Brosnan, to pretend to be a badass. In the same way, Huey learns that he doesn't need to be the fighter. Annie can handle the physical fights, and he can support her in other ways. So, by accepting who he really is, he's able to fully understand his father and reconcile with Annie. This is the same arc that MM has in this episode, and it's also a tragic reflection of A-Train's storyline. A-Train spent the season essentially being human again because he was unable to run, and because of this, he was able to actually empathize with Huey.
I'm sorry. It's up. Seeing somebody that you love get hurt like that.
But Huey hits him, making him feel weak, so he decides that he needs to kick some ass, and he murders Blue Hawk for disabling his brother. In other words, he's trying to act like the action hero from his movies instead of being his real, authentic self. And his reward for this is to have the racist heart of Blue Hawk involuntarily placed inside his chest, symbolic that the racist policies of Vought are now a part of him too. His brother rejects him for this.
I don't want a murderer in the same house with my kid!
So now A-Train's only family is the Seven, and as Homelander tells us later, it's not much of a family.
You're not my family. I don't need any of you.
Meanwhile, Kimiko has also had her powers restored, but unlike A-Train, she did this voluntarily and is fully aware of her past and who she is. Kimiko's actually had my favorite arc this season, and I love that she was able to use her newfound wisdom to help Frenchie. Meanwhile, Soldier Boy and Butcher's conversation about alcohol and their fathers shows us how much the two of them have in common, and how they're both still defined by the mistakes of their past and past generations. It also links alcohol to this cycle of violence, which Butcher has replaced with Compound V24, another destructive substance that encourages violence and is killing him. Soldier Boy also talks about his biopic, saying it lost to the Gene Kelly star vehicle American in Paris.
Got a poor kid from the streets of South Philly. Discovers he's got incredible powers to match his heart of gold.
Now there's actually a parallel here with Kimiko's new favorite movie, Flashdance, about a working-class Pennsylvania woman who fights her way from a steel town into the world of dance conservatories. I mean, Soldier Boy's dad could have actually owned one of those steel mills that Alex worked at in the movie.
Actually, my father owned half the steel mills in the state.
He also mentions that he got some backdoor action with Jane Wyman, that's Ronald Reagan's ex-wife. This proclivity explains why he needed more Astroglide in the Legend's bedroom. Now, this narrative they sold the public, that he was a poor kid from the streets who volunteered for an experiment to serve his country, is of course retelling the origin of Steve Rogers. Except, Soldier Boy actually became super just to impress his father.
He said I took a shortcut.
So, for his entire career, Soldier Boy felt like he couldn't prove himself to his dad, so there was no point in proving himself to anyone. It explains why he was such a self-serving ass. And since he was the first hero and a role model for all the other supes, it meant that he set this standard for the others. Every superhero became a self-serving ass, all because Soldier Boy had daddy issues. And man, the boys has more daddy issues in the MCU.
For all these years. Of course I have issues. That's my freaking father. He was cold. He was calculating. He never told me he loved me. He never even told me he liked me.
I'm sorry, little one. Our future depends.
You are wrong.
You ain't subatomic.
So, all through this episode, Homelander and Soldier Boy are looking for reasons to not fight each other.
He's the only blood I've got left.
Did you know that I had a father out there?
And Homelander eventually kills Black Noir, his closest ally, because he kept a secret from him. Now, it's ironic, because Homelander claims to know Noir better than anybody.
I see through that mask. I mean, literally, I can see your face. Your battle scars.
But in reality, Homelander lacked any kind of empathy for Black Noir's condition, because he never bothered to ask, hey, how'd you get those stars? So, RIP to the most tragic character of the boys, Black Noir.
Soon you'll be in the sweet embrace of Christ the Lord.
That is the funniest, saddest thing I've ever seen on this show. Now, I've pointed this out all season, but this is again Homelander taking from the dictator's playbook. His own arrogance is the downfall of the company. His confession caused the stocks to plunge, and he's removing people closest to him because of a perceived slight or disloyalty. And as we see, Homelander actually hates his inner circle and he just wants a family of his own. And he finally tells Ashley to remove her wig, and we see the results of her compulsive hair pulling disorder, trichotillomania, a very real condition that's hard to overcome. The show has based Ashley off the character Jessica Bradley, who pulls out clumps of her own hair in the comics. Back at the Flatiron building, we see the boys are working out of the old office of Grewal and Company, and Arv Grewal is the lead production designer of this show. Homelander convinces the Deep to commit a little by killing a U.S. senator. And something similar definitely happens in the comics, where Homelander decides to just take over the government and kill the president. Now, I think this is the logical conclusion of this show, which seems like it's building toward a soup takeover of the government after Victoria Newman pops the head of Dakota Bob, very similar to her comic book counterpart Vic the Veep, who became president after Bob was accidentally eaten by a Wolverine. Bob had actually planned to assassinate him, and the Wolverine thing was just a happy accident. When the boys are cooking up their plan, MM says to Frenchie,
Mr. Wizard know-how?
referencing this decades-long kids show where an old man taught kids about the wonders of science. So they all head over to Vought Tower, an ending that was foreshadowed in this season's very first scene. The season begins with a shot of a destroyed Vought Tower and a down statue of Soldier Boy, and both of these things happen for real in this episode. And then we see an old Soldier Boy newsreel akin to the Captain America reels from First Avenger. His costume seems even more Golden Age in nature and closer to Cap's from that time period. It's also appropriate that the soups don't age because, hey, neither do comic book characters. We keep getting older and they stay the same age. Personally, I thought this whole final sequence was a little bit weak. Maeve and Homelander, two of the strongest characters in the world, have a fight in this tiny office and they barely break anything. They just dent a filing cabinet. Remember, we saw Maeve do this in the first episode. I mean, I know there's budget constraints and COVID restrictions and all that, but it just felt very basic to me for a climactic action scene, especially after all this buildup.
There are a couple thousand people in that building. I mean, if he pulls a hero-gasm, he's gonna take the whole place down.
Now, it is cool to see that Maeve is such a better fighter than Homelander because she's not as strong, so she has to try harder. But all the Soldier Boy stuff in this fight worked really well. Huey realizes that it's his job to support Starlight instead of trying to be like Starlight. It's a great character moment for him, and it's what the show's been building to all season. He's come to realize that he doesn't need to open every jar, so to speak. Kimiko pays off watching Flashdance by using the dance moves in her lab fight. Now, I remember the last time we saw her in a dance sequence, it was when she was happy that she lost her powers.
I got my man who could ask for anything more.
So this scene is a way to show that she is embracing the violence and she's happy with who she is. Maeve ends up choosing to fight Soldier Boy, which works out great for her because she loses her powers and is given the life that she's always wanted. She even talks about when she first met Annie in the bathroom, moments after the Deep sexually assaulted her.
Never let them see you like this.
And that scene was the beginning of Annie learning that the Soups weren't really heroes, and all of her actions since then have been about deciding between doing what's right or doing what's easy. Afterwards, we see that Vought has spun the battle to make Soldier Boy out to be a Russian asset that was used in a Russian terrorist attack. Now, this could actually be setting the stage for an international conflict with Russia, where they use their anti-Soldier Boy radiation to take out Vought's Soups. We talk about all of that in our Ending Explained video. And then Soldier Boy is put back into stasis, much like Bucky at the end of Captain America Civil War. The Deep's X is publishing a tell-all novel about him, so everyone will know about him and Ambrosia. Butcher learns he's on a ticking clock because of his Compound V habit, and I still think that he'll end up taking the permanent stuff at some point in the show. Later, he drinks from the Dawn of the Seven Cup as Annie is officially inducted into the boys. And then we get the scene where Homelander actually lasers a guy in broad daylight, to Todd's endless squealing delight.
Yeah!
Now, we covered this scene and what it means for the future in our Ending Explained video, but I want to point out that the show has been drawing parallels to Donald Trump and Homelander all season long. This scene calls to mind two things. This quote,
where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters.
And finally, the January 6th riots. And for those of you who think I'm reaching, the show's not trying to be political, look at this guy with the horns in the crowd. He's made up to look like this January 6th rioter. And the creepiest part of this whole scene, that thin little smile on Ryan's lips. So let me know your thoughts on the boys finale and what's up for the future in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.